say I am mad? Listen and observe how calmly I can tell the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain. But once conceived, it haunted me, day and night. Truth is, I loved the old man. He'd never wronged me, never done me any insult. I think it was his eye. Yes, that was it. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. And whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, you think me mad, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than the whole week before I killed him. Every night, around midnight, I'd turn the latch on the old man's door and open it so gently, so as not to disturb his sleep. Would a madman have been so wise? Once in the room, I lit my lantern until a single beam of light shot forth and landed on the vulture eye. This I did for 7 long nights, every night. The eye was always closed, so it was impossible to do the deed, to kill the old man and his evil eye. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious, but perhaps he heard me, for he moved suddenly in his bed as if startled. Not a moment or two passed before he sprang up and cried, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I didn't move a muscle. But still, the old man sat up, listening, just as I had done, night after night. Although he could neither see me nor hear me, he could feel my presence in the room. So I decided to open a very small crack in the lantern until a tiny beam of light shot forth from the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open. I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I could see it perfectly, all a dull blue and hideous veil over it. It chilled me to the very marrow of my bones. That's when I heard it. It was the sound of the old man's heartbeat. A low, dull, quick sound. It grew quicker and quicker and louder and louder. The old man's terror must have been a scream. But still it grew louder, louder. I thought the heart was gonna burst. Then a new fear struck me. The sound would be heard by the neighbors. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open my lantern and I leapt into the room. The old man shrieked once, just once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and placed the heavy bed on top of him. But for many minutes, the heart beat on in a muffled sound. Until finally, it ceased. The old man was dead. I placed a hand over the heart. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer as I describe to you the very wise way I proceeded in the concealment of the body. I worked hastily, but in silence. First, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, the arms, the legs. Then I pried up 3 planks from the floor of the old man's chamber. I hid the body underneath, then replaced the boards so cleverly, so no human eye, not even his, could detect anything wrong. As the bell sounded the 4 a.m. hour, there came a knocking at the door on the street. I went down to answer it. For what now had I to fear? 3 gentlemen entered, introduced themselves as police officers. A shriek had been heard by the neighbors, and they had been dispatched to search the premise. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I welcomed them in, assured them that the shriek was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned, he's out of the country. I brought my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. In the excitement of my confidence, I brought chairs into the old man's room and desired them to rest here. My own chair I placed over the 3 boards. The officers were satisfied. My calm manner had convinced them. They sat, and as I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But before long, I felt myself grow pale, and I wished them gone. My head ached, and there was a ringing in my ears, but still they sat, and still they chatted. The ringing grew more distinct, and I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I grew quite pale indeed, but what could I do? I talked more fluently and faster, but the noise increased. It was a low, dull, quick sound. I gasped for breath, but the officers heard it not. I talked more confidently and in a louder volume, but still, the noise increased. It grew louder, louder, louder. Was it possible they heard it not? They heard. They suspected. They knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. And still, they sat, and they chatted, and they smiled pleasantly. Anything would be better than this. Anything more tolerable than this agony. I could take their smiles no more. I thought I must scream or die. And still, the heartbeat is the